And we're back with our world lead now. A U.S. soldier was killed last week in Syria. He was on a classified mission, we're told, to kill or capture a known member of ISIS, according to the Pentagon. But now President Trump has stunned advisors by saying he wants to pull all U.S. forces out of Syria and to do so, quote, very soon. How might that affect the U.S. campaign against ISIS? CNN's Barbara Starr joins me now live from the Pentagon. And Barbara, is the president's national security team backing him on this surprise announcement?
Well, Jake, there is now a national security meeting scheduled for tomorrow to discuss Syria. So far, no rush to agree with the president on any of this. CNN has learned that military plans are in the works that could send dozens of additional U.S. troops to northern Syria, defense officials say, just as President Trump was saying this.
We'll be coming out of Syria like very soon. Let the other people take care of it now.
Killed in northern Syria hours after President Trump said the U.S. should get out, Army Master Sergeant Jonathan Dunbar and Sergeant Matt Tunrow of the UK, both killed in an IED blast while on a classified mission to capture or kill an ISIS operative. Dunbar, part of the Army's elite Delta Force. The National Security Council meets Tuesday to discuss Syria and the 2,000 U.S. troops there. So far, no one is rushing to agree.
All of his military advisors have said we need to leave troops in Syria.
The president's top diplomatic envoy for the fight against ISIS tweeted, "Our fight against ISIS is not over." The Pentagon press secretary just before the president spoke.
While the coalition has significantly degraded ISIS, important work remains to guarantee the lasting defeat of these violent extremists.
The White House press secretary again trying to soften Mr. Trump's words.
We want to help, but at the same time, we want other people to step up and put a little skin in the game.
President Trump also has frozen $200 million in recovery funds for Syria for restoring water, power, and roads. An early U.S. pullout will only benefit Iran and Russia, skeptics warn.
Russia also wants to keep their foothold in the Middle East, and the only one that they have right now is really through Syria, so they don't want to give that up.
And Iran could then achieve its goal, a trade route from Tehran to Damascus.
It'd be the single worst decision the president could make.
And if the president goes against Defense Secretary James Mattis and General Joseph Dunford, chairman of the Joint Chiefs?
I think it's too early to say that, this is the litmus test, that if it doesn't go their way, they walk. But I do think it's going to be very interesting to see what their advice is and the degree to which it's being followed.
Now, Jake, I've talked to at least a dozen officials, and so far, I haven't found anybody who agrees with the president that it's time to get out of Syria. Jake?
Barbara Starr, thank you so much. Senator Mazie Hirono, Democrat of Hawaii, joins me now live from Honolulu. Senator, thanks so much for joining us. What do you think? Should President Trump pull U.S. troops out of Syria?
This is yet another example of the president's incoherence, and it's clear that he thrives in chaos. We haven't heard from General Dunford. We haven't heard from General Mattis. And yet this is really on a par with the kind of incoherence that the president exemplifies on a daily basis. And I think in this instance, he's again reacting to what's happening with the Mueller investigation that threatens to close in on him and his associates every day.
Well, what do you think should be done? Should the U.S. pull out of Syria, or do you think that the U.S. troops need to stay there at least until the Pentagon feels ISIS has been defeated?
I have a lot of questions about Syria in terms of what does winning against ISIS mean? What are we going to leave Syria to if we exit? And yes, I agree with your prior commentator that Russia and Iran benefit from this situation. How does that help our country, et cetera? So there are a lot of unanswered questions about what pulling out of Syria soon means. And that's probably why we haven't heard from people like General Mattis, our Secretary of Defense.
You're on the Senate Armed Services Committee. What kind of briefings has the White House and the administration given you on President Trump's plans on Syria?
He hasn't given us any briefings or anything that comes from any thought process that he's engaged in. And this is a surprise utterance from him yet again. And so what we've heard were things like General Mattis back in November saying that we need to provide a diplomatic route to stability in that part of the world in Syria. Same thing echoed by Secretary Tillerson, who is out. And so here comes the president, as you noted, that at a time when the Department of Defense was prepared to send dozens more of our military people to Syria, that he comes out with this. And it's taken everyone by surprise. Again, chaos reigns with this president.
I just remember a lot of Republicans being very critical of President Obama when he announced a date certain to start withdrawing U.S. troops from Afghanistan. And the argument was, well, all the enemy has to do is just wait out President Obama, and then they can start taking over again.
Yes.
Obviously, ultimately, President Obama left troops in Afghanistan around 9,000 or 10,000. Do you have those same concerns about this announcement from President Trump?
I know that this announcement was, yet again, shoot from the hip. And in the Middle East, it's very dangerous to shoot from the hip, you know, going in, coming out. We need to be very clear about what our goals are, and we haven't gotten that from this administration nor this president. So what does winning look like? What does leaving Syria look like? The entire Middle East is very complicated, and we should understand what's going to happen and what the consequences may be before we shoot from the hip. And unlike the president, the rest of us do not shoot from the hip. That would be totally irresponsible, and it would not support our national security interests at all, in my view.
We were told today by the White House that when the president spoke with Vladimir Putin last month, he just suggested the two meet, potentially even at the White House. What do you make of that?
We all know that the president admires Putin very much. I have a concern as to what kind of a meeting he's going to have with this man that he admires so much. And it's, again, very indicative of the fact that the president very much admires strongmen. You know, in Putin, we have somebody who controls his country with an iron fist. I believe that that's what President Trump would like to do in our country, but we have a democracy. We don't have a one-person rule. So I would have concerns about how prepared Trump would be in meeting with Putin, and I shudder at the thought, frankly. And in addition, shouldn't he be paying more attention to what's happening with North Korea and the supposed meeting that he is going to have with Kim Jong-un? I would be very concerned about that meeting coming forward.
All right, Senator Mazie Hirono, thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.